It's finally happened. No Man's Sky has been released, and all over the world, children of all ages are unwrapping digital copies of the game everybody has been waiting for. Well, that is, since the last game they were waiting for at least. Yes, No Man's Sky is far from the first video game to get virtually almost everyone aboard its hype train, but the colorful space-based game is almost unique in how much hype it's generated versus the truly tiny amount of information that would actually come from official sources throughout the development of the game. When the first teaser for No Man's Sky dropped in 2013, the focus was almost entirely on the clever technology the game was using, the scale of the environment, and the distinct and beautiful art style and graphics. Even for a teaser, this video clip left audiences with no clear idea of what the actual game was about. All it really did was inject the term procedural generation into mainstream gaming discourse. See, the big hook for No Man's Sky is the use of procedural generation of game assets. Traditionally, every aspect of a game's environment that you see has been deliberately designed and placed by hand. That seemingly random pile of rocks in Skyrim are there because, well, someone, a human being, decided that they should be there. Procedural generation, on the other hand, flips the script and lets the software build the environment according to general rules or algorithms. For example, there may be general rules that tell the software what constitutes a planet, but within those parameters are an infinite number of possible combinations, each of which will create a completely unique world. No Man's Sky is not the first game to use procedural generation, however. The earliest example, ironically, is probably from the original Elite by David Bradman and Ian Bale. This 1984 title jump-started the freeform space exploration genre. The planets you found while playing Elite were generated also by an algorithm, so you never knew what you were going to get. Since then, plenty of games from various genres have used procedural generation. For example, the Diablo games have used procedural methods to generate dungeon layouts, so that no two instances of the game are exactly the same. Will Wright's genre-breaking game Spore also made an extensive usage of procedural methods to create creatures and planets. Still, despite the apparent core premise of No Man's Sky not being that original, it's probably the only game to ever put procedural generation so squarely at the center of its design. The gaming industry, that is almost as risk-averse and sequel-hungry as Hollywood, any high-profile original ideas are going to generate some form of hype. The first teasers and prototype demos at E3 were less like a hype grenade and more like a hype atomic bomb. Interest in the game was white hot, which meant people were incredibly hungry for details, any details at all. The problem with that is a proof of concept tech demo was probably all that Hello Games had at that point in 2013. There's a reason why another 3 years of development was needed before there was an actual game to ship. Unfortunately, Hello Games had done their job too well. What people had seen of No Man's Sky fired their imaginations that now turn the filling of information void with speculation and expectations. There's really no way to know how much mystery around No Man's Sky during its development was deliberate or accidental. It makes sense that for a game which mostly consists of secret sauce, the developers would be careful to not spoil what they were working on. The problem with that is that what they've shown to the public was actually incredibly suggestive. We see this sort of thing happen with trailers for movies that are still being shot and yet to be edited. In fact, those trailers are usually created by a third-party company that specializes in making movie trailers, and not by anyone who actually, is working on the movie itself. So a lot of the time we get trailers that suggest a completely different kind of movie to what we eventually get. First impressions count, and our first introduction to No Man's Sky had made unintentional promises that a small indie developer had never intended to make. It suggested something epic, unique, and immersive, without even knowing what type of game this was or what actually playing it would involve. People were already seeing themselves set out into the galaxy. In their minds, they were already playing a specific version of No Man's Sky that may be beyond anybody's ability to make real. What the developers should have done is clear up the pages of misconceptions people had made about the game from everyone to see in the comment sections and forums across the web. However, if you're a tiny indie project that has suddenly been gifted with more attention than a celebrity wardrobe malfunction, it becomes a game with AAA expectations overnight. You might as well be tempted to let the hype machine eat itself alive. No Man's Sky smashed Hello Games' previous sales records on pre-orders alone. Hell, the game even made it to Steam's top sellers list before it was even released. That was before anyone even played it. Clearly, this was a strategy that worked well from a business perspective. People were sold on the idea alone. Sold enough that they would put down $60 for no real reason. After all, digital pre-orders don't serve much of a function. It's not as if there was a limited supply of the game. Anybody could simply wait just a few hours for the first reviews and then decide on spending their cash or not. Like anything though, the strategy comes with a price, and No Man's Sky has the dubious honor of having one of the most divisive fan communities ever seen in a game. The extreme levels of pessimism and negativity about No Man's Sky that existed amongst the hopefulness and excitement is not entirely new, In fact, right now we're seeing similar things happen with another ambitious space-based game that even I support, Star Citizen. For almost every cult-like No Man's Sky evangelist, there's someone like myself who is so deeply suspicious of the game's supposed promises that they have to make it into a personal crusade. Between these two poles, you'll find people who have positions all along that continuum, but No Man's Sky is not a game that generated many people with moderate views on the game. The interesting thing here is some of the most negative people started off as the game's biggest fans. They say that the line between love and hate is a thin one, and this is a textbook case example of exactly that. During development, No Man's Sky was like a high school crush that wouldn't give you the time of day. You can admire them from afar, but you'd have to imagine the details. Just about everyone has had the experience of putting their secret crush on a pedestal, only to inevitably find out that they're only human after all. When our expectations are violated in this way, we take it personally in an extreme way because of the secrecy around the game, that it twisted expectations so much that it was inevitable that quite a few people would become very negative about both the ability of Hello Games to deliver on what they promised and what people believed they had promised. This was the price the studio had to pay for the sustained interest the game ultimately enjoyed. And on top of this, it doesn't help that gamers have been conditioned to be skeptical of overblown promises. Look at Peter Molyneux as a prime example. While he's been responsible for some of the most objectively best, or at least historically significant games in history, he has become notorious for crafting amazing conceptual visions and then delivering games that are watered down versions of it. In the end, money and technology limit how much an artist can realize what they have in their heads. Was the mysterious approach the right choice? It may turn out that going down this road was, in fact, a little short-sighted. It's also pretty risky, and we have no shortage of examples that support that view. Think about Half-Life 3 and the trajectory of hype around that game. Valve is the poster child for the mysterious, uncommunicative game developer, and the hype around Half-Life 3 has long since soured. Valve, as a rule, says nothing about what they're doing. They won't even say if anyone's working on the project, because the truth is that the firewall approach has turned Half-Life 3 into a zero-sum game. If Valve does eventually release it, the pent-up skepticism and impossible expectations would frame the game extremely negatively. If they never release it, well, the result is much the same. The best thing for them to do is probably just move on, and it seems that that actually might be what happened. No Man's Sky was delayed a few months, and there was conflicting interpretations of its claimed multiplayer features and what actually shipped to customers. If this were an Assassin's Creed game or any other normal AAA game, these issues would be nothing more than annoyances. However, sitting on the mystery powder keg that Hello Games has created, these two relatively small issues cause serious backlash. Can you imagine if No Man's Sky was delayed another year? That's not an unlikely outcome, as it happens with game development all the time. However, that sort of delay could have destroyed whatever goodwill remained left within the community. And by taking this road, Hello Games has walked a very thin and dangerous line. And next time, they might not be so lucky. Hey, so you made it to the end of the video. I appreciate you guys checking out, and if you enjoyed this video, why not leave a like and maybe a comment below? And if you really enjoyed this video, why not share it with your friends, both who love No Man's Sky and hate its guts, and see what sort of conversation comes out of it. Hopefully they won't kill one another.
Will you be able to play with your friends?
Yeah.
Is there a competitive element to this game?
Yeah, if you want that, yes.
Can you grief other players?
A little bit.
Will there be NPC characters?
No.